Hello again, I'm Miss Longchamp, and this is Hall, our pseudonym for her. And this is the last recording that we are doing for RED 510. And the text that we're reading today is Dreaming Inside the Box, The Art of Joseph Cornell. And the purpose of this reading lesson is everything is basically we're trying to get Hall to be more motivated to read. She selected all of the material. But we also look at other key points in understanding literature or reading comprehension. So we're focusing on character traits, main character, central idea, and summary for this test. And this is an informational test that we're looking into. And these are some of the things that we went over throughout the course of our lessons. So we're going to look at the questions that we're going to focus on today. And the questions are: how would you describe the early life of Joseph Cornell? What was unusual about Cornell's shadow boxes? Compare Cornell's life to his art. How are they different? And if you were to give advice to young artists using Joseph Cornell as an example, what would you say? And that last question is actually the question that she's going to utilize for her writing. Okay? So, first things first, we have a vocabulary word activity. This one is vocabulary hotshot notebook. Now Hall has been going around with her cards, and she has a stack full of cards of the vocabulary words. In between the lessons also, we have different spelling activities and spelling tests. And the only thing is some of the lessons we're not recording the spelling included. So the vocabulary, I just want to show you guys the vocabulary sheet that we're utilizing. Bear with me because we do not have a camera person. So hopefully this is right. So you can see the different labeling of the vocabulary words. And these are the different times that she sees the vocabulary words so that they're utilized in context. And we do not teach vocabulary in isolation. The word or word family, the place and source that she saw, heard, or used it in. It could be the classroom, school, home, conversation, book, TV, other. Also, how it was used, okay? And also, what does it mean? All right? So, a specific context. So, here's a look at it again. So, we're going to start with one of the words for the sake of my storage. We're going to start with the word extensively. Extensively. So, the word is extensively.
The word or word and family is extensive.
Very good. Very good. And then your place and source that you saw, heard, or used it.
You can hear it anywhere usually. Oh, it would take an extensive time for something.
Okay. So you've heard it.
Store.
All right. Put that. She says she's heard it in a lot of different places, but she just selected store. And how was it used?
It's right here. Yeah, it says here.
Sure, what does it say?
Joseph loved the idea of travel and extensively researched the cultures of many countries, especially France.
All right, so it says Joseph loved the idea of travel and extensively researched the cultures of many countries, especially France. So extensively. So you're going to put that sentence there when we're done. And then what do you think it means? What do you think extensively means?
A long time. Take your time and find more and more information.
All right, so extensively research, like in depth, right?
Yes.
More and more and more in depth. There's layers to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is what we do for the vocabulary hotshot notebook, and we continue to do it with the different words, the second time, third time, until the word meaning is understood and comprehended. So, Dreaming Inside the Box, the art of Joseph Cornell. What do you think that this text is about? Dreaming. She says she feels like this text is about dreaming.
Dreaming, but when you dream about something,
All right, so when you're dreaming about something that you have art with. So in addition to that, we're going to go ahead and start the reading. What she's going to do is read the first part, and I'm going to go ahead and record her to basically check her fluency, which she has improved in thus far. So you're gonna start off with when. Let me get my timer together and start.
When you think of the vast amount and variety of art created throughout history, you might also think that people who created those works of art must have spent years as students in art school or as apprentices, the other artists. You may even see them as members or art collectives, traveling the world to inspire the creations. But there is one artist who shatters all of those preconceived notations about what it takes to create art. Joseph Cornell. Born in Nyack, New York in 1903, Joseph Cornell was the son of a textile designer and salesman, a job that younger Joseph would also end up taking as an adult. Joseph's brother Robert was born with
Cerebral
cerebral
palsy.
palsy 7 years later, and just a year after that, Joseph's father died of leukemia.
Leukemia.
Leukemia. The family's financial circumstances were fairly grim after the death of Joseph's father, so his mother family to Queens, moved the family to Queens, part of New York City. After living in a number of different places, the family finally settled in a section of Queens called Flushing.
All right, so let's stop and ask questions for now, and then you can continue reading. Okay, so we know that. What do we know about Joseph Cornell? He's very what?
Artistic.
Okay, he's artistic inclined.
Bright imagination.
Yes, very bright, broad imagination. And how did he grow up?
In New York.
Yeah, he grew up in New York, and his father died of leukemia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his brother was born with cerebral palsy. And how were they financially?
They're fairly grim.
Okay, fairly grim means what?
Not that much.
They didn't have that much money. Very good. They didn't have much money. All right. From the day Robert was born, we're going to alternate paragraphs now. From the day Robert was born, Joseph took responsibility for his happiness and well-being. After spending 3 rather unsuccessful years at Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts, Joseph came back home to his mother and brother for good. So at one point he was receiving his education, but how did he do?
He didn't do so good.
He didn't do too well. So then he returned back home. Your turn, next paragraph.
Throughout his late teens and early adult years, Joseph held a number of grueling sales jobs to help support the family. As a sort of compensation for the work he hated, he spent his free time wandering around Manhattan. Everywhere he went, he collected interesting objects he found in thrift shop, variety stores, and even on the streets.
Okay, so he really didn't have that much money. So he worked at different odd jobs so that he can make ends meet. Joseph loved the idea of travel and extensively researched the cultures of many countries, especially France. However, his shyness and discomfort around people for any length of time, as well as his sense of responsibility for his brother, meant that he never actually left New York. So why did he leave New York?
Discomfort and shyness.
He was shy, and what else?
He didn't have much money, but we think he can make money somewhere else.
All right, money, shyness, and lastly, what else? Who did he have to take care of?
His brother.
Yeah, his brother had cerebral palsy. Have you heard of cerebral palsy before? All right, let me show you really quick. Cerebral palsy. No, I'll show you my phone because I went to sleep and it's going to take forever. All right, so this is cerebral palsy. It's basically a disease that may cause you to even become disabled. I'll show you right now. And there's a lot of information on it right now, though, but it affects the body movement and muscle coordination.
Like paralyzed?
Yeah, it can. Yes, definitely. How there's some people that still walk and they still have, they can still have mobility, but in a lot of cases, um, they don't have mobility. So it affects your brain, your muscle coordination, etc. So he felt like he really needed to help his brother out. In his late 20s, Joseph began to put together the objects he had collected into shadow boxes. Each of these boxes represents some aspect of his dreams of freedom or social connection and of love. He used metal hoops and bars, string marbles, wine glasses, feathers, shells, postcards, programs for shows, paper doll parts, and even postage stamps. Armed with a little glue and a pair of scissors, Joseph considered all these objects fair game for his box collages. So what is a shadow box?
A bunch of stuff you put for his box collages.
Right. So it's basically a box. I'm pretty sure you've seen it before. It's a box, and then you put different objects in it, and it represents a different type of art or memory or something of the sort. All right. Joseph also idolized a number of famous dancers and opera stars who performed in the city. He put together files of photos and scraps of information about them. Many of these bits and pieces ended up in boxes he created as tributes to his favorite stars. While Joseph was certainly indebted to the influence of artists such as Max Ernst, Marcel Duchamp, and Kurt Schweitzer, whose works he had seen in galleries and studied, his own skills as an artist were entirely self-taught. He began to display his boxes in local galleries, and word soon spread out about the magical creations of Joseph Cornell. His collage technique also extended into filmmaking. He took existing films and chopped them up, reassembling pieces of them to create entirely new films. In Joseph's boxes, little objects that might seem insignificant all by themselves took on a whole new meaning in combination with pieces of maps, diagrams of constellations, and scraps of advertisements. Throughout Joseph's career as an artist, he had to supplement his income with a number of jobs he hated. However, he was successful enough that artists from all over the world heard about his work and came to meet him. He became friends with a great many of well-known artists and writers, and his work began to sell for high prices later in his career. Eventually, he was able to focus solely on his artwork, creating a large workshop in his mother's basement. He hired a constantly shifting cast of young art assistants to help him organize and catalog all the objects he collected. Joseph fascinated the luminaries who met him, which led to exhibiting collections of his work in prominent museums in New York City, such as Guggenheim and the Museum of Modern Art. Joseph became friends with a great many people and forged personal connections from around the globe, but his fears kept him disengaged from the world on a regular basis. Why? Why did his fear keep him away from people? Because he was very what?
He was very shy.
Yes. He was never quite able to overcome his shyness. His wistful remark to one of his sisters near the end of his life is telling. I wish I hadn't been so reserved. Instead of physically connecting with the world, Joseph Cornell poured all of his visions and dreams into his boxes. He created irresistible visual stories that continue to inspire artists and writers to this day. So, we know that he is, what can you say about Joseph Cornell? He's a what?
He's a shy but very talented boy.
Yeah, very talented artist. Well, he started out as a boy, but
he's a man.
Yes, yes. All right, so how would you describe the early life of Joseph Cornell, his early life?
Hard.
Very hard. Why?
Because he didn't have that much money.
He didn't have money.
His dad was ill.
His dad was ill.
His brother's ill.
Yes, and he took all type of jobs, right, to help.
To help them.
Right. What was unusual about Cornell's shadow boxes?
They had all different varieties type of stuff in there.
Yeah, all type of stuff that people wouldn't find interesting or important, and he brought light to those things. Very good. Number 3, compare Cornell's life to his art. How was his life like his art?
He pulled everything from his childhood memories and stuff and put it into
together. Okay, and how were they different? How was his art different?
His art was different from other people because I think he mostly used his lifestyle, not other people's lifestyle, and he tried to do what happened to him to show his affections and ways.
Okay, so he couldn't travel around